A widowed millionaire Jack Thompson hires a fast food restaurante employee Lily Carter to pretend to be his wife at a ball. He didn't expect that. What happens when an unlikely agreement between two complete strangers begins to reveal secrets neither of them expected? Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. Jack Thompson stood at the edge of the small gathering, feeling the weight of solitude bear down on him like an oppressive cloak. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the memorial dedicated to his late wife, Claire. He could hear the soft murmurs of the elite, their voices tinged with curiosity and judgment as they exchanged glances, noting the absence of a partner by his side. The whispers felt like arrows, piercing through the facade of strength he had meticulously constructed since her passing. "Poor Jack," one woman murmured, her tone dripping with feigned sympathy. "Still hasn't moved on. How tragic." Jack clenched his jaw, fighting against the swell of emotions that threatened to break through the carefully crafted exterior. He had loved Claire deeply, a love that had blossomed amidst laughter and shared dreams. But that love had been silenced too soon by the cruel hand of fate. Her sudden illness had turned his world upside down, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief. He had spent the past year wrestling with his feelings, trying to navigate a life without her. Yet the world around him insisted that he must move on. "Jack, dear," a familiar voice broke through his thoughts. It was Veronica, a socialite with a penchant for drama. She approached him with a practiced smile, her perfectly manicured nails glinting in the sunlight. "You really should consider finding someone. You know how people talk." "I'm not interested in what people talk about, Veronica," he replied, his voice steady but laced with a sharp edge. "I'm here to remember my wife, not to find a new partner." Veronica raised an eyebrow, her smile unwavering. "Still, it wouldn't hurt to have a companion by your side. A lovely woman to accompany you to events. It would certainly silence the gossip." Jack felt a flicker of anger rise within him, but he pushed it down, reminding himself that he was at a memorial, not a social gathering. The last thing he wanted was to engage in a conversation about his lack of a romantic partner. Instead, he turned his gaze back to the simple altar adorned with flowers, each petal a reminder of the life they had shared. As he stood there, lost in memories of Claire's laughter and warmth, he couldn't shake the feeling of suffocation that accompanied the presence of his peers. They were all so polished, so perfect in their designer outfits, their conversations filled with trivialities that felt utterly meaningless in the face of his loss. He felt like an outsider, a man trapped in a gilded cage, and all he wanted was to escape. Meanwhile, at a local fast food restaurant, Lily Carter was juggling orders behind the counter, her mind drifting to a life far removed from the grease-stained floors and fluorescent lights. The place buzzed with energy, children laughing and families chatting, but she felt like an island in the midst of a vibrant sea. Her younger brother, Tyler, had been in and out of the hospital for months, battling a health issue that loomed over their lives like a dark cloud. Each shift she worked brought in just enough money to keep them afloat, but Lily yearned for more, a life where she didn't have to worry about every penny. "Lily, we need more fries," her manager called, snapping her back to reality. She nodded, forcing herself to smile as she filled the fryer with fresh potatoes. As she worked, her thoughts drifted to Tyler. She remembered the way his eyes sparkled with mischief before they had learned about his condition. He had dreams of being a football player, of running fast and kicking goals, but those dreams felt like distant stars, shining brightly but forever out of reach. "Hey Lily, you okay?" One of her co-workers, Sarah, asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, just thinking," Lily replied, trying to mask her worries. "You know how it is, just trying to make ends meet." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight that Lily carried. "You're doing great. Just hang in there. Something good will come along. I know it." Lily smiled weakly, appreciating the sentiment, but feeling the truth of her circumstances. The fast food counter was not where she wanted to be for the rest of her life. She dreamed of a day when she could provide for Tyler without struggling, of a world where they could experience joy without the constant shadow of illness looming over them. Back at the memorial, Jack felt the last remnants of the gathering begin to dwindle. People exchanged polite goodbyes, their faces painted with the same practiced expressions. He was grateful for the dwindling crowd, finally able to breathe without their scrutiny. He took a moment to stand in front of Claire's photograph, tracing the outline of her smile with his fingers. "Why can't I let you go?" he whispered to the wind, his voice barely audible. The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the universe itself was waiting for an answer. In that moment, desperation began to creep in, an idea forming in the back of his mind. He could hire someone. It was a ridiculous thought, but the idea of showing up to the charity ball without a partner felt unbearable. He could find someone to pose as his wife, someone to deflect the whispers and allow him a semblance of normalcy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the memorial, Jack pulled out his phone and began to scroll through social media. He came across profiles of local women, searching for someone with a genuine smile, someone who could play the part well enough to satisfy the expectations of his peers. Hours passed as he sifted through countless profiles until he stumbled upon a photo that struck a chord within him. It was of a young woman with striking hazel eyes and a bright, infectious smile. Her name was Lily Carter. There was an authenticity in her expression, a contrast to the polished images he had seen all evening. He hesitated for a moment, his heart racing at the thought of sending a message. What if she thought he was crazy? But the weight of his loneliness and the pressure from society pushed him forward. He typed out a brief message, offering a substantial sum for her time at the charity ball. "Hi, Lily. I hope this message finds you well. I'm in need of a temporary partner for an upcoming charity event. Would you be interested? I can offer a generous compensation for your time. Looking forward to hearing from you. Best, Jack." He hit send, feeling a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. The decision felt both impulsive and necessary, a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of his life. What harm could it do? He needed to break free from the suffocating expectations of his social circle, even if it meant constructing a facade for a night. As he turned to leave the memorial, Jack felt a flicker of hope for the first time in months. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where he could step outside the shadows of his grief, if only for a moment. Meanwhile, across town, Lily was finishing her shift, unaware that her life was about to take an unexpected turn. Lily Carter sat at a small round table in the bustling cafe, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as she stared out the window. The sun poured through the glass, casting warm light across her face, but the warmth was overshadowed by the weight of Jack Thompson's proposal that echoed in her mind. A man like him, a wealthy, sophisticated widower, wanted her to pose as his wife at a charity ball. It felt surreal, an impossible dream wrapped in a shiny bow of desperation. As she sipped her coffee, she thought about Tyler, her younger brother, who needed surgery soon. The bills were piling up, and her meager paycheck from the fast food restaurant hardly made a dent. Jack's offer was tempting, more money than she could make in a month. Yet, the very idea of pretending to be someone she wasn't filled her with uncertainty. She had always been a fighter, but this felt like a leap into the unknown. Her musings were interrupted by the soft chime of the cafe door opening. Jack walked in, his tall frame exuding an air of confidence that was both intimidating and intriguing. He wore a tailored suit, his hair perfectly styled, and he scanned the room until his eyes landed on her. A sense of dread mixed with curiosity rippled through her. What did he see in her, a simple girl from a fast food joint? "Lily?" he asked, his voice smooth like velvet as he approached her table. "Yeah, that's me," she replied, trying to keep her tone casual, though her heart raced. "You're Jack, right?" "Indeed." He extended his hand, and she took it, feeling the firmness of his grip. "Thank you for meeting me." "Sure," she said, pulling her hand back and tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "So, about the whole wife thing?" Jack leaned in slightly, his expression earnest. "I understand it sounds absurd, but let me explain. This charity ball is important to me, both personally and professionally. I need someone by my side to help me navigate the evening, to present a united front, so to speak." "Right, but why me?" Lily asked, her skepticism creeping back. "There are plenty of women who would jump at the chance to attend an event like that." Jack chuckled softly, a sound that was surprisingly disarming. True, but I need someone genuine. I looked through countless profiles, and yours stood out. You have a spirit that's refreshing. Plus, I know it sounds cliché, but I appreciate your smile. It seems real. Lily raised an eyebrow, unsure if she should be flattered or offended. So, you're saying I'm your last resort? No, not at all. He leaned back in his chair, a hint of frustration flickering in his eyes. I'm saying I want someone who isn't caught up in the social ladder. Someone who can be herself. Besides, it's a job, one that pays well. Think of it as a temporary arrangement. She studied him, trying to see past the polished exterior to the man beneath. What happens when the night is over? Do you just forget about me? No, it's not like that, he replied, his voice softening. I promise to keep things professional. We'll just have to play our parts, and then we can walk away. But I assure you, it won't be as cold as you think. Lily bit her lip, contemplating his offer. The money was hard to ignore, especially with Tyler's health hanging in the balance. I'll think about it, she finally said, trying to mask the internal battle raging within her. Take your time, Jack said, a flicker of hope in his eyes. But I hope you'll consider it. I truly believe we could make a great team. As they parted ways, Lily felt a mix of dread and excitement. The thought of stepping into Jack's world, a world so far removed from her own, sent shivers down her spine. Yet, the image of her brother's hopeful smile pushed her to consider the impossible. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of contemplation. Lily found herself at the fast food restaurant counter, taking orders, but her mind was elsewhere. She imagined the charity ball, the glitz and glamour, the people in their elegant attire. Would she fit in? Would Jack actually treat her as an equal, or would she merely be a prop in his life? Finally, she decided to call him. Okay, I'm in, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke to Jack on the phone. Really? His excitement was palpable. That's fantastic. We can meet this weekend to get you ready. Ready for what? She asked, half laughing. I don't even own a fancy dress. Jack chuckled. Consider that part of the plan. I'll take you shopping. Arriving at the upscale boutique Jack had chosen, Lily felt like a fish out of water. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, and the walls were lined with lavish gowns that seemed to whisper promises of transformation. Jack greeted her with a bright smile, already holding a couple of dresses in his arms. Welcome to the world of high fashion, he said, gesturing towards the racks. Let's find you something that makes you feel beautiful. Lily raised an eyebrow. You think I'll feel beautiful in one of these? Absolutely, he replied, his confidence unwavering. Let's start with these. As he handed her the dresses, she couldn't help but laugh. You really know how to pick them, huh? I've done this before, he admitted, his eyes twinkling. Just trust me. You'll see. They spent the next hour in the boutique, Lily trying on dress after dress, Jack offering his opinions with a mix of charm and sincerity. Some dresses made her feel like a princess. Others felt awkward and out of place. But with each passing moment, she began to see herself in a new light. Wow, Jack said as she emerged in a stunning emerald gown that hugged her curves perfectly. You look incredible. Lily stared at her reflection, momentarily speechless. I can't believe this is me, she whispered, her heart fluttering. You deserve to feel this way, he replied, his gaze steady. It's about more than just the dress. It's about stepping into your own power. As they continued to explore the boutique, they began to share snippets of their lives. Jack spoke of his late wife, his voice laced with both love and sorrow. She was my world, he confessed. But I've learned that love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. Lily nodded, feeling a pang of empathy. I can't imagine what that feels like. I've had my battles too. My brother, he's my everything. The conversation flowed easily, revealing layers of vulnerability neither of them expected to share. Jack's polished exterior began to crack, and Lily saw glimpses of the man behind the wealth, someone who had experienced profound loss and was still trying to find his footing. As they left the boutique, Lily felt lighter. The weight of her worries momentarily lifted. They walked side by side, the sun setting behind them, casting a warm glow over the city. She glanced at Jack, and for the first time, she saw him not as a wealthy stranger but as a kindred spirit navigating his own grief. "Thank you for today," she said softly, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I didn't expect it to be so meaningful." Jack smiled, his expression genuine. "I'm glad you feel that way. I think we're going to make a great team at the ball." Lily nodded, a thrill of anticipation coursing through her. What had started as a simple transaction was evolving into something deeper, something she couldn't quite define yet. As they walked, she felt the distance between their worlds begin to close, igniting a spark of hope in her heart. The evening air buzzed with laughter and chatter as Jack and Lily maneuvered through the crowded ballroom, their hearts racing with the thrill of the night. The grand chandeliers cast a warm glow over the polished marble floors, creating an atmosphere of opulence that was almost intoxicating. As they moved from group to group, Jack felt a strange mix of anxiety and exhilaration. He hadn't expected to enjoy this ruse as much as he did, and he found himself increasingly drawn to Lily's infectious energy. "You know," Lily said, lightly nudging him with her elbow as they paused to admire a particularly extravagant centerpiece. "I could get used to this kind of party. I mean, look at all this food." Her eyes gleamed with excitement as she gestured toward a table laden with delicacies and sweets. "I'm definitely going to need a dessert break soon." Jack chuckled, his somber mood momentarily lifted. "I think I can arrange that," he replied, a playful smile forming on his lips. "But let's try not to make a scene. We don't want to attract the attention of the elite socialites." As if on cue, a sharp voice cut through the laughter around them. "Jack Thompson, is that really you?" The voice was smooth yet laced with a hint of disdain. Jack turned to see Veronica Harrington, a prominent socialite known for her piercing gaze and relentless ambition, striding toward them. She was impeccably dressed, her designer gown clinging to her figure in a way that spoke of wealth and status. "Veronica," Jack greeted, trying to maintain his composure. He could sense Lily tense beside him, her eyes darting between him and the approaching woman. "Who's this?" Veronica inquired, her gaze narrowing as she scrutinized Lily. "Your new companion?" There was a pointedness in her tone that made Jack's stomach churn. "Lily," she interjected, extending her hand confidently despite the tension in the air. "I'm Jack's wife for the evening." Veronica raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "Oh, is that so? I didn't know you had remarried, Jack. I suppose it's easier to move on when you're not actually attached, isn't it?" Her words dripped with sarcasm, and Jack felt a surge of irritation. "Lily is here for the charity ball," Jack replied, his voice firm. "She's doing me a favor." He felt a protective instinct flare up inside him, wanting to shield Lily from Veronica's probing. "Doing you a favor? That's rich, Jack. You were always one to take advantage of those less fortunate." Veronica's eyes glinted with mischief as she leaned in closer, her voice low. "You're just using her as a distraction, aren't you? A pretty face to hide your grief?" Jack's heart raced, his pulse echoing in his ears. He opened his mouth to retort, but Lily spoke first. "I'm not a distraction, Veronica. I'm here because I want to be." Her voice, steady and unwavering, surprised both Jack and Veronica. There was a fire in her that Jack hadn't realized was there. Veronica straightened, momentarily taken aback. "Interesting. I suppose we'll see how long that lasts." With a dismissive wave of her hand, she turned to mingle with other guests, leaving a charged silence in her wake. Jack glanced at Lily, who was visibly shaken yet trying to maintain her composure. "I'm sorry about that," he said softly, his heart heavy with guilt. "I should have warned you about her." "It's fine," Lily replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm used to people like her. I work at fast food restaurant, remember? I get all kinds of customers." She forced a smile, but Jack could see the uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Still, she shouldn't have said those things," Jack replied, shaking his head. "You deserve better than that." Lily turned to him, her expression softening. "You know," she started, her tone more serious, "it's easy for people like her to think they know everything about someone's life just because of their status. But they don't see the struggles, the real stories behind the smiles. Jack felt a pang of sadness as he listened. "You're right," he said, his voice low. "I often forget that not everyone lives in the same world I do." Their conversation shifted to the balcony, where the cool night air wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. The stars twinkled above, and the distant sounds of music and laughter drifted in. It was a moment of reprieve from the chaos inside, and Jack felt a sense of calm settle over him. Lily leaned against the railing, gazing out at the city lights. "You know, if I could do anything in the world, I'd want to travel," she confessed. "See places I've only read about. Paris, Tokyo, New York. I want to experience life outside this little bubble." Her eyes sparkled with dreams as she spoke, and Jack couldn't help but feel mesmerized by her passion. "What's stopping you?" he asked, genuinely curious. "I don't have the money for that kind of life," she replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "And with Tyler's health issues, it's hard to think about anything else. My priorities are different now." Jack nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility. "I can relate to that," he said, his voice softer now. "After losing my wife, I felt like I was stuck in this endless cycle of grief. I didn't know how to move forward, and I certainly didn't think I could find happiness again." Lily turned to him, her expression serious. "But you're trying now, right? You're here, you're living," she said gently. "That counts for something." "It does," he admitted, feeling a flicker of hope at her words. "But I still carry the guilt. Sometimes I feel like moving on is a betrayal to her memory." Lily stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "Jack, it's okay to feel that way, but you have to let yourself heal. Your wife wouldn't want you to be unhappy forever. She would want you to find joy again." Jack swallowed hard, her words resonating deeply within him. "You're wise beyond your years, Lily," he said, the warmth in his chest growing. "I never expected to have such a meaningful conversation tonight." "Neither did I," she replied, a soft smile breaking through the earlier tension. "But it's nice to talk to someone who understands. I don't just want to be a placeholder in your life, Jack. I want to be someone you can count on." The sincerity in her voice made his heart race. He felt the walls he'd carefully constructed around himself begin to crack, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future that included laughter and love once again. Just then, the sliding doors to the balcony opened, and Veronica stepped outside, her eyes narrowing at the sight of them together. "Jack, darling," she called, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "I hope you're not getting too cozy out here." Jack's heart sank as he turned to face her. "We were just having a conversation," he said defensively. "Of course," she replied, her tone condescending. "But you do remember that this is a charity event, don't you? I'd hate for you to forget your responsibilities." As she spoke, Jack sensed Lily tense beside him, and he felt an overwhelming need to protect her from Veronica's venomous words. "Lily is just as important to this event as anyone else here," he retorted, his voice firm. "She deserves respect." Veronica's laughter rang out, cold and mocking. "Respect? From you, Jack? You're merely using her to soothe your own broken heart. You don't really care about her." In that moment, Jack's resolve solidified. "You're wrong, Veronica," he said, his voice steady. "I care about her more than you'll ever know. She's shown me a light I didn't think I'd ever see again." Lily looked up at him, her surprise evident, and Jack felt a rush of warmth at the vulnerability he had just expressed. He realized that he was ready to confront the demons of his past, to embrace whatever future awaited him with Lily by his side. Veronica's expression darkened, and she leaned in closer, her voice low and menacing. "You should be careful, Jack. This is a dangerous game you're playing. Don't forget who you really are." Jack felt the weight of her words, but he also felt something else, an invigorating sense of freedom. "I'm done playing games, Veronica. I'm ready to live." With that declaration, he turned back to Lily, who was watching him with wide eyes. In that moment, he knew he had made a choice, not just for himself, but for them both. They would navigate this complex world together, stepping into the light from the shadows of their pasts. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Jack's opulent mansion, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Jack Thompson paced restlessly in his study, his mind a chaotic whirlwind of emotions. The laughter and joy from the charity ball felt like a distant echo now, replaced by a suffocating silence that enveloped him. He had spent the night tossing and turning, haunted by the memories of his late wife and the guilt that bubbled beneath the surface. How could he entertain the idea of moving on? Hiring Lily had seemed like a practical solution, a necessary facade, but now it felt like betrayal. He stared out the window, watching the birds flit about, free and unburdened. He longed for that freedom, to not be weighed down by the past. He had opened his heart during those fleeting moments with Lily, but the reality of his grief pulled him back, anchoring him to a sorrow he couldn't shake. The thought of her bright smile and the warmth of her laughter filled him with a sense of longing, but he pushed it aside. He couldn't endure the thought of dragging her into his complicated life. Meanwhile, Lily Carter was at her own crossroads. Standing in the cramped kitchen of her small apartment, she prepared breakfast for her younger brother, Tyler, who was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. The cheerful aroma of pancakes filled the air, but Lily's heart felt heavy. She had spent the night replaying the moments with Jack, their dance, the way he had looked at her, but the aftermath left her feeling hollow. Had it all been an illusion? Was she merely a distraction for him, a temporary escape? "Hey, Ty," she called out, forcing a smile as she served him a plate. "Hope you're hungry." Tyler looked up, his eyes brightening momentarily. "Always for pancakes," he exclaimed, his excitement infectious. But as he took a bite, the shadows of reality crept back in. "Are we going to the hospital today?" he asked, his voice small. Lily's smile faltered. "Yeah, we will," she replied softly. "Just after breakfast, okay?" Her brother nodded, but she could see the worry etched on his face. His health had been a constant source of anxiety, and the burden weighed heavily on her shoulders. She had hoped that her brief encounter with Jack would lead to something more, a reprieve from their struggles. But now, with him retreating into his grief, she felt the sting of abandonment. She had opened up to him, shared her vulnerabilities, but it seemed that their connection was fleeting, like a summer breeze that had dissipated too quickly. After breakfast, Lily decided to take a walk to clear her head. The streets were bustling with life, a stark contrast to the turmoil within her. She strolled past shops and cafes, her thoughts drifting back to Jack. Did he even think of her? Did the night they shared mean anything to him? The questions plagued her, and with each step, she felt more resolute. She needed to focus on her brother and their reality, not on a fantasy that had slipped through her fingers. Meanwhile, Jack sat in his study, staring blankly at the wall. He picked up his phone, the screen lighting up with messages from his friends, all asking about the charity ball and the lovely woman who had captured his attention. He felt an overwhelming urge to reach out to Lily, to apologize for his sudden withdrawal, but the fear of rejection held him back. What could he say? Sorry for abandoning you after we shared something beautiful? The thought made him cringe. As the hours dragged on, Jack's resolve began to crumble. He couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that gnawed at him. He missed Lily's laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her dreams. He needed to see her again, to understand if what they shared was truly gone, or if there was still a chance for something real. Later that evening, Lily found herself back at the hospital, sitting nervously in the waiting room while Tyler underwent a routine checkup. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the faint sounds of nurses bustling about. Lily tapped her fingers anxiously on the armrest, her heart racing. She wished she could shake the feeling of uncertainty that had settled over her. She wanted to believe that she could fight for her brother's health and for whatever it was that had sparked between her and Jack. As she waited, the memories of their time together flickered in her mind. The way he had looked at her during their dance, how he had shared his grief, made her feel seen and understood. But now, in the stark fluorescent lights of the hospital, those memories felt bittersweet. She was just a temporary escape for him, a distraction from his pain. "Lily," a nurse called, interrupting her thoughts. She stood quickly, her heart pounding. "Yes? It's time for Tyler's checkup. You can come with me," the nurse said, leading her down the corridor. As they approached the examination room, Lily's mind raced. She needed to be strong for Tyler, to show him that they could get through this together. But a part of her longed for Jack's presence, for the comfort he had unknowingly provided. Back at his mansion, Jack paced again, his thoughts consumed with uncertainty. He felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed by waves of guilt and longing. He grabbed his jacket, determination coursing through him. He needed to see Lily, to confront the feelings that had taken root in his heart. He couldn't let fear dictate his life any longer. He had to take a chance. As he stepped outside, the cool night air hit him, invigorating and refreshing. He climbed into his car, the engine purring to life, and made his way toward the hospital. With each passing moment, his resolve strengthened. He would find Lily and tell her everything. The truth of his feelings, the fear of moving on, and his desire to be a part of her life. When he arrived at the hospital, he felt a surge of anxiety wash over him. He navigated the familiar corridors, his heart racing as he approached the waiting room. But when he entered, the sight of Lily brought him to a halt. She was sitting in a chair, her face drawn and tired, but there was a quiet strength about her. He felt an overwhelming urge to go to her, to wrap her in his arms, but he hesitated, unsure of how she would react. "Lily," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Jack, what are you doing here?" I needed to see you," he stammered, stepping closer. Her expression shifted, and he could see the mix of emotions in her eyes. Confusion, hurt, and maybe even a flicker of hope. "You disappeared," she said, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "I thought I meant something to you." "You do. You mean a lot to me," he admitted, his heart racing as he searched her gaze for understanding. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to handle everything that happened after the ball." Lily's defenses began to soften, but the hurt lingered. "You were just using me as a distraction, weren't you? You didn't want to feel your grief, so you turned to me." Jack shook his head vehemently. "No, it was never like that. I felt something real with you, something I haven't felt in a long time. But I was scared. Scared of moving on, scared of what it would mean." She looked away, her breath hitching slightly. "I don't want to be a rebound, Jack. I can't be that for you. I'm not asking you to be. I just need a chance to show you that we can be something more," he urged, his voice earnest. "I want to be there for you and for Tyler, if you'll let me." Lily's heart raced at his words, a glimmer of hope igniting within her. But the reality of their situations loomed large. "Tyler's health is complicated. I don't want you to feel obligated." Jack stepped closer, determination etched on his face. "I'm not here out of obligation. I want to be a part of your life, to support you both. I've been lost for so long, and you've shown me a glimpse of what it feels like to hope again." The tension hung thick in the air, a palpable mix of uncertainty and longing. But before either could speak again, a nurse emerged from the examination room, calling for Lily. "Tyler is finished. You can come in now," she said, gesturing for her to follow. Lily turned to Jack, her heart pounding. "I need to go," she whispered, the weight of their conversation settling heavily on her shoulders. "Please, just think about what I said," he urged, desperation lacing his voice as she walked away. As she entered the room, Jack stood frozen, watching her go. He felt a sense of urgency wash over him, knowing that he had to fight for her, to prove that he was ready to embrace the possibility of love again. In that moment, he made a vow to himself. No matter the obstacles, he would not allow fear to dictate his life any longer. He would find a way to reach out to Lily again, to show her that their connection was worth pursuing, no matter the challenges ahead. The illusion of love they had crafted together was only the beginning of something real, and he was determined to make it last. Jack Thompson felt a mix of determination and anxiety as he parked his luxury sedan in front of the familiar fast food restaurant. The bright yellow arches seemed almost taunting now, a stark contrast to the elegant world he had occupied just days ago. This was not the place he had envisioned when he first hired Lily Carter to be his wife, but the thought of her had lingered in his mind like an unfinished melody. He needed to find her, to understand the depth of their connection and the emotions that had stirred within him during the charity ball. As he stepped inside, the familiar scent of fries and burgers enveloped him, and the clamor of customers filled his ears. He approached the counter, where a young employee with a friendly smile recognized him immediately. "Mr. Thompson, what can I get for you today?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. "Actually, I'm not here for food," Jack replied, his voice steady but his heart racing. "I'm looking for Lily Carter. I heard she might have quit." The employee's expression shifted to one of concern. "Yeah, she did. Last week, her brother's health got worse, and she needed to focus on him. I think she's been spending all her time at the hospital." Jack felt a pang of guilt wash over him. He had been so caught up in his own grief and confusion that he hadn't considered the struggles Lily was facing. "Do you know which hospital she's at?" he asked, his mind racing with thoughts of how he could help her. "Sure, it's St. Mary's. It's just a few miles from here," the employee said, her voice softening. "I hope everything's okay with her brother." "Thank you," Jack said, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. He left the fast food restaurant and drove to St. Mary's, his heart pounding. He had to see Lily, to tell her that he wanted to be there for her, that his feelings for her ran deeper than he had dared to admit. Arriving at the hospital, Jack parked and took a deep breath, steeling himself for the emotions that awaited him. The sterile environment felt cold and uninviting, but he was driven by a purpose that warmed him. He stepped through the sliding glass doors and approached the reception desk. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Lily Carter. I believe she's here with her brother," he said, his voice low and steady. The receptionist nodded, typing on her computer. "Yes, they're on the 3rd floor in the pediatric ward. Room 312. Jack thanked her and made his way to the elevator. As the doors closed, he felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anticipation, fear, hope. Would Lily be receptive to him? Would she understand that he wanted to support her, to be a part of her life, even if their initial arrangement had been for show? Stepping off the elevator, Jack navigated the sterile halls until he found room 312. He paused for a moment, glancing through the small window in the door. Inside, he saw Lily sitting by a hospital bed, her face pale and drawn, but her eyes were filled with a fierce determination. Tyler lay there, looking small and fragile amidst the beeping machines that surrounded him. Gathering his courage, Jack knocked softly on the door before entering. Lily looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "Jack," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He stepped inside, feeling the weight of the moment. "I came to find you," he said, his heart racing. "I heard about Tyler. How is he?" Lily's expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, the wall she had built around her heart began to crumble. "He's stable for now, but it's hard. I'm trying to keep it together for him," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Jack moved closer, taking a seat in the chair beside her. "You don't have to do this alone, Lily. I want to help you. I've been thinking about everything since the ball, and I realize that I care about you more than I thought I did." Lily's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and vulnerability. "You care about me? But I'm just a stand-in, right? Just someone you hired for the night?" "No." Jack shook his head, frustration flaring. "It started that way, but it became so much more. You showed me that I could feel again, that there's still life in me after losing my wife. I can't just walk away from that." Tears glistened in her eyes. "Jack, I don't know if I can let you in. My life is a mess right now. I'm scared." "I understand," he said, his voice earnest. "But I want to be there for both you and Tyler. I want to support you, whatever that looks like." Just then, the door swung open, and a nurse entered the room, breaking the moment. "Hello, Miss Carter. Just checking on Tyler," she said, her professional demeanor taking over. Jack stepped back, allowing the nurse to do her work while he observed Lily's protective nature as she clutched Tyler's hand, her love evident in every gesture. Once the nurse finished, she gave them a reassuring smile and left the room. Jack turned back to Lily, wanting to recapture the connection they had just begun to forge. "I know it's a lot to process, but I'm serious about wanting to help. Maybe we could start by getting to know each other better?" Lily hesitated, biting her lip. "I appreciate that, Jack, but there's something else you should know." Before she could elaborate, the door burst open again. This time, it was Veronica, her presence dominating the room. Well, if it isn't the grieving widower and his little charity project," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Isn't this sweet?" Jack stiffened, feeling the tension thicken in the air. "What are you doing here, Veronica?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Veronica's gaze shifted between Jack and Lily, her eyes narrowing. "I came to see how you've been holding up, Jack. You know, you could easily come back to the life you had. You don't have to get involved with this," she gestured dismissively at Lily. Lily straightened, her expression fierce. "I'm not just some distraction, Veronica. I'm here for my brother, and Jack is here because he wants to help," she said, her voice steady. Veronica scoffed, crossing her arms. "Help? Or is it just sympathy? You're a temporary fix for a man who doesn't know how to grieve properly." Jack felt a surge of protectiveness for Lily. "You don't know what you're talking about, Veronica. I'm here because I care about both of them. You need to leave." Veronica stepped closer, her voice lowering conspiratorially. "You think you can just walk away from your past, Jack? From the life we had? This is just a phase for you. You'll get tired of playing house." But Jack stood his ground, looking directly into Veronica's eyes. "No, you're wrong. I'm not walking away from anything. I'm choosing to move forward, and that means being there for people who matter to me. And right now, that's Lily and Tyler." The tension hung in the air like a thick fog, and for a moment, it felt as if time had stopped. Lily's eyes darted between Jack and Veronica, her heart pounding. She could feel the weight of Jack's words, the sincerity behind them, and it made her heart swell with hope. Veronica's expression hardened, and with a huff, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving behind a silence that felt almost sacred. Jack and Lily stood there, the tension slowly dissipating as they processed what had just happened. "I'm sorry about that," Jack said, running a hand through his hair, his breath shaky. "I didn't expect her to show up." Lily met his gaze, her heart racing. "Thank you for standing up for me. It means a lot. I didn't think anyone would." "I meant what I said," Jack replied, his voice softening. "I want to be here for you, for Tyler. You don't have to go through this alone." Lily felt a flood of emotions rush over her. Fear, hope, and a growing sense of trust. "I don't know what the future holds, Jack, but I'd like to explore this, whatever this is between us." Jack smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through him. "Let's take it one step at a time." As they shared a moment of understanding, the weight of their pasts began to feel lighter. In the midst of uncertainty, they found solace in each other, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The air in the hospital lobby was thick with tension as Jack Thompson stood at the entrance, his heart pounding against his chest. He had just come from the pediatric wing, where he had seen the fear etched on Lily's face as she clutched Tyler's small hand. The little boy had been fighting against the odds for months, but now, it seemed the weight of the world had settled heavily upon his frail body, and Lily was struggling to keep her composure. Jack took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as he turned to face Veronica, who had appeared unexpectedly, her presence a stark reminder of the life he was trying to escape. She wore a tailored suit that screamed privilege, her polished demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos of the hospital around them. "Jack," she called, a disarming smile plastered on her face. "I didn't expect to see you here. Is everything all right?" The question felt like a dagger, and Jack could see through her facade. "No, it's not all right, Veronica. Lily's brother is sick, and I'm here for her," he replied, his voice steady but laced with underlying frustration. Veronica stepped closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, you're better than this, Jack. You don't need to waste your time on her. This isn't where you belong." Jack's jaw tightened as he met her gaze. "And where do I belong, Veronica? In a world of superficiality and empty conversations? Or maybe living in the shadow of my late wife forever?" Her expression faltered, but she quickly regained her composure. "You're hurting, and I understand that. But using Lily as a distraction won't heal you. You need to come back to the life you had, the one you deserve. Is that what you think?" Jack challenged, stepping forward, his voice rising slightly. "That I'm using her? You don't understand anything about what I feel for her. She's shown me a kindness I didn't think I could ever feel again. I'm not hiding behind her. I'm learning to live again." Veronica crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "You're making a mistake. This is just a phase, Jack. You'll see." Jack shook his head, resisting the urge to back down. "No, Veronica. The mistake was thinking I could go back to the way things were before. I found something real with Lily, something that's helping me heal. If you can't accept that, perhaps it's time for you to step back from my life." As Jack turned away, he felt a surge of determination. He needed to be with Lily, to support her in this difficult time. He rushed back to Tyler's room, where he found Lily sitting in a chair, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Jack," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I didn't expect to see you here again." He knelt beside her, taking her hands in his, feeling the tremors of her grief. "I couldn't leave you, Lily. I know it's hard, and I can't imagine what you're going through, but I want to help." Lily looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. "I don't want to drag you into this, Jack. You've done so much for me already." Jack squeezed her hands, urgency in his voice. "You're not dragging me anywhere. I want to be here for you and Tyler. Let me help with the medical expenses. We can organize a fundraiser at my estate. We can get the community involved. You don't have to do this alone." Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, the weight of her worries seemed to lift. "You'd really do that for us?" "Absolutely," he replied, a fierce determination igniting within him. "You've shown me what it means to care for someone beyond yourself. I want to give back, to show you both that you're not alone in this fight." Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks, and Jack felt his heart break at the sight. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Just let me be here for you," Jack said gently. "That's all I ask." As the days passed, Jack poured his energy into organizing the fundraiser. He reached out to his wealthy friends and acquaintances, sharing Tyler's story and the urgency of their situation. He was surprised by the generosity that flowed in, as people rallied to support a cause that touched their hearts. On the evening of the fundraiser, the grand hall at Jack's estate was transformed into a vibrant space filled with laughter, hope, and warmth. The air buzzed with excitement as guests mingled, eager to contribute to the cause. Jack watched as Lily moved through the crowd, her radiant smile shining brightly despite the shadows that loomed over them. "Jack, this is incredible," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with disbelief. "I can't believe how many people showed up." "They care, Lily. They want to help," Jack replied, feeling a swell of pride for what they had accomplished together. "And it's all thanks to you for being brave enough to share your story." As the evening progressed, Jack took the stage to speak. He cleared his throat, his heart pounding as he faced the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We're gathered not just to raise funds, but to show support for a remarkable young boy and his incredible sister, who have faced unimaginable challenges with strength and courage." He glanced at Lily, who stood at the edge of the stage, her eyes shining with gratitude. "This isn't just about money. It's about community, love, and the connections we build with one another. Together, we can make a difference." The crowd erupted in applause, and Jack felt a surge of emotion as he continued. "Let's show Tyler that he's not alone in this fight. Let's give him the hope he deserves." As the night wore on, the donations poured in, and the atmosphere was electric with solidarity. Jack felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years, knowing they were making a tangible difference in the lives of those they cared about. Later, as the last guests began to leave, Jack found Lily standing outside on the balcony, gazing out at the stars. He approached her, feeling a warmth spread through him as he took in her beauty. "Lily," he said softly, "you were amazing tonight. I couldn't have done this without you." She turned to him, her expression a mix of awe and vulnerability. "I never thought I'd see something like this happen for Tyler. You've given us hope, Jack. You've given me hope." Jack stepped closer, his heart racing. "I want you to know that you mean so much to me. You've brought light back into my life when I thought it was impossible." In that moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken feelings, and Jack could no longer hold back. He took her hands, pulling her close. "I love you, Lily. I never expected to feel this way again, but you've changed everything for me." Tears filled her eyes, and she whispered, "I love you too, Jack." I didn't know how to say it. They leaned into each other, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss that sealed their connection. A promise to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As they pulled away, Jack looked into her eyes, seeing a future filled with possibilities. Hand in hand, they stepped back into the warmth of the hall, ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and hope, they knew they had found something truly special, an illusion of love that had blossomed into a beautiful reality.